main focus today is going to be the application process, talking about our funding, our timeline. I know there are folks that have been through this several years. It'll be kind of the same old hat with you, but I've got several folks here that hadn't been through the process. So we'll walk through the timeline of where we're going, our application process, the packet itself that many of you have in your hand, and then, as Chuck says, those rules and regs and the things that are going to happen after we get the approval process done. What happens next after you've gotten these funds between August and October 1st? And then, as Chuck says, Chuck will come back and talk about the housing pool availability, the SHIP fund availability. Terry and Chuck are going to team on those last three items that you see up there. And then when we get done, as Chuck says, kind of hold those questions to the end. Hopefully we'll get through all of them. If not, then we'll answer those at that point. Estimated funding. And why do I say estimated there? As you well know, right now the federal government's still in a continuing resolution from moving forward. They're hoping somewhere around April that they're going to tackle that process again, probably another funding deal. So these numbers you see here, the $667,000 worth of CDBG funds, the $285,000 of Home Investment Partnership funds, are the entitlement that we got last year. Hopefully, somewhere around the 1st of April or mid-May, we'll actually get an exact number that we're going to get. Those top two numbers, as I said, are entitlements. We're going to receive that, good, bad, or indifferent. Now, what is that number going to be? If some of you saw on the news 2 days ago, the president's budget shows a $6 billion cut from HUD. One of the things I heard is that's supposed to be public housing, but we never know what that number is going to be until we get it. So hopefully, as I said, as we get further along in the process, we won't have that exact number before Friday on the 24th, but as we move forward, then we will adjust how we get there. The housing pool number, which is made up of our CDBG, home, and our SHIP funds for those projects that may have not come to fruition, may have not used all of their money. We have that pool of money there for those opportunities that come about after the application process. Again, that's an estimated number because, again, between now and September 30, when the end of the fiscal year, that number will fluctuate some too. Same thing with program income. Our main program income right now is coming from the home program. We're putting those funds out there as loans, and we're getting that money back. Why is that important? Program income is a lifeblood for these programs as these funds have been reduced by the federal government. If we're not loaning this money out right now, we don't have $525,000 to come in and make up a $300,000 reduction that we may get the next year. So as we're moving forward, we're looking at those opportunities to restructure that program income and how we're putting this money on the street. So you may begin to see loans that are 0%, 1%, 2%. As I said, in order for us to maintain down the road 5 years, if we've lost all of this funding, we may still have that program income there. So as we said, Chuck said, and Denise mentioned, some restructuring and so on, thinking about things in different ways. Program income is going to be one of those things that we're going to be looking at, again, to help maintain these programs so we still got it 2 or 3 years down the road. Our timeline. The notice of funding availability went out on the 24th in the newspaper and on our websites. Today is our application workshop. Now you see it there in big and bold. Friday, March 24th, 4:30 is the deadline. We've got to have everything in our office by that 4:30 deadline. Okay? Okay. Between now and March 24th, we will be available, myself. You'll see my number, email address at the end of the presentation. I've got cards when you get ready to leave. Staff and I will be available to walk you through these places of what box you got to have, what documents you've got to put in there, and all of that between now and Friday 2 weeks from now. But again, 4:30 application deadline submission. The next prominent thing, April 18th, the NAHAB board meetings. Kim, when are those board meetings held? 9 o'clock here?
Yes.
Okay. 9 o'clock, April 18th, NAHAB board, the Neighborhood and Affordable Housing Advisory Board likes to take and have each one of our applicants, we're going to have 5 minutes to do an overview and tell them about your application. Number of people that are going to be served, what area it's going to be, all of those pertinent things that you can put for your application in a 5-minute presentation. Okay? 9 o'clock here in these chambers for those presentations. Okay. Technical Review Committee is a group of 3 to 5 people that we provide these applications to that have a checklist that we have in the packet we'll talk about in a minute, that they rank and score your applications. We as a staff look at regulations and everything, but we don't actually rank and approve the applications. The Technical Review Committee and a couple of the NAHAB business members are going to be those ones that take your application that you provide them and do the review and rankings for staff and I. Okay? So they're going to meet on the 20th to finish up their rankings and everything of the applications that you submitted. Okay. On May 9th, again at 9 o'clock here in the chambers, we will have the NAHAB board, which will do the approval of the allocation recommendations that the Technical Review Committee have made. Okay? Once Technical Review Committee gets done, they provide us those rankings. We then go back and take those numbers that you saw on those front pages and start going down the list and providing the funding as it's available. Okay? One of the things is we have public service providers here. We've only got 15% of our funds. We've got to squeeze as many of those as we can in that 15% allocation. And we have limitations on what we have in entitlement and program income to do the other projects. But we will base our rankings and everything, base our recommendations based on those rankings that the TRC and the NAHAB board members have provided us.
And Joe, I think that's important to know. 15% of our CDBG allocation is all we can spend on public services, and you may be getting into that later. So it's a finite amount. So
that number is about 110,000 based on the entitlement we had last year.
So you're all competing for those funds. Facilities projects are different. They are not capped by that 15%. Sorry to interrupt, Joe.
No problem. So after the NAHAB board approves the recommendations, then staff and I begin the process of putting together those recommendations into our annual action plan. Our annual action plan is that report that we give to HUD that says, here's our budget, here's what we're going to do for the next fiscal year, which is October 1 to September 30. Staff and I begin putting that together, and we get it all put together. Then, as part of HUD's rules and regulations is public participation. As you saw up there on the meeting, it said a public meeting. You guys are welcome to that meeting. Citizens are welcome to that meeting. We advertise it so that we're required to let everybody know what we're doing with these funds. Okay? So in that process, as I said, public meeting, anybody can come, talk to. Are we giving the funds to the right people? Or should they go here? Whatever. Citizens participation, they're involved. Another part of that citizen participation plan is on June 23rd, we're going to open the 30-day public comment period. We'll advertise it in the paper that the annual action plan, we advertise the budget, where the funds are going, and we take public comment. We are to take that public comment and use it where we deem necessary, where there are a need that we need to change something, we have that ability. Again, on July 11th, we take the annual action plan to the NAHAB board for their approval. Again, a public meeting where we will ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the annual action plan based upon what they've seen in the advertisement and everything else. We make it available online so that people can go out and look at the annual action plan and again, provide us feedback to make any recommendations that they think. And with those public comments, they're all put into the action plan that we tell HUD, this is what people have said, This is how we've dealt with it. This is how we've not dealt with it. But again, citizen participation, letting everybody know what we're doing with these federal funds. The 24th will be the end of that 30-day comment period. And then on August 3rd, we will take the annual action plan to City Council for their approval. Okay? Again, a public meeting where we have, it is open to the citizens to speak to the City Council and let them know their concerns or anything that they have like that. Okay? At that point, it is done. Annual action plan is done. April 15th is our deadline that we are to submit it to HUD, and we will, as again, finish up with it and get it submitted to HUD for their approval. Okay. That's kind of how we get to the application, or the process that we're going to go through to get all of this approved and get you some money. The application packet, as we had on the back, I think many of you picked it up. It is still available if you need to download a copy of it to work on your application. It is available at myclearwater.com, affordable housing tab. And everything that you see and have in your hand is available out there if you need another copy to work on. Again, bright red bold letters, March 23rd, March 24th, 4:30 p.m. Deadline to have everything to our office. Okay, the first part of the packet I want to talk about is the application instructions. Always read that first before we start this process. It provides you the detailed guidance that you need to fill this application out. Things that it has in there for you. On our website, it has our maps of the NSRAs. It has your census tracts. That'll be some information that we need to have when we start talking about filling out the applications. It has a section in there that talks about goals and performance measures and goals. Why are they important to us? HUD is, in this ever-shrinking amount of federal funds that we have, HUD has to report to Congress of the things that happen out there on the street to help fight for that funding. Performance measures and goals are going to be important, that we show that we had 100 folks served with this program, 50 folks served there. It's important that we maintain those and everything in order for us to report to HUD. I can't finish out my funding reports unless I have your beneficiary data, who you have helped. We've also got to report to HUD of, here's what we were supposed to do, here's what we actually did. So again, that section is in there, is very important. It also provides you examples of the schedules, the budgets. So again, use that to fill in your application and help with that process. Now, you're going to have your instructions there. Everybody's going to be able to do it. Don't need to call us. If you run into that problem, or that's something that wasn't explained well, or something you just don't understand, again, you've got my phone number there and my email address. Feel free to call. I'll walk you through it and make sure that we can get everything done at that process. Okay? But again, that instruction manual is going to be your guide, your pointing in the right direction document to help fill these out. The application form itself. Please submit one original copy. When I say one original copy, that original copy is going to have the signature on the second page, signed in blue ink, so that we know it's the original. Okay? And then we need one copy of that application. Those are submitted March 24th by 4:30. Okay. If we have organizations that are going to submit more than one activity, a public service down payment and assistance program, public service and a facilities project, an application for each one of those activities. Okay? Each one of those activities needs an application for the funding that you're gonna get. Okay? Answer every question. If it doesn't apply, please put in A in that spot. Okay? Be as descriptive as you can, but as concise as possible. Okay? There's a section in your instruction packet that will talk to you about what those parts of the narrative should be so that you can be as descriptive and as concise as you can. So as I said, there is a section in your instruction packet that will help you with that process. All applicable items and requested attachments must be included to be considered substantially complete and to be reviewed. Okay? We will only base the applications based on that information that we get and we have there. I know we've got a lot of applications that we have that we've seen these people before. If the information's there, we can't rank it on information that's not in there. So make sure that you've got everything in there. One thing I did want to note as we were talking, as we came up to this meeting, we have some new folks in our audience that are going to be doing economic development activities. On that portion there where we come down to activity, you won't see economic development as one of the activities as we've got a checkoff box. There's a section there that says other, and it's on page 2, ma'am, if you want to look in your application. But there's an activity down there that says other. Write in economic development there. Okay? Anybody else that doesn't have something that fits in those boxes of activity, put other. And fill out what it is in that other blank. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay? Yes, ma'am. All right. And we'll come back to this if we have further questions as we do. But again, I think it's important. The key takeaways from this one, the one original signed in blue ink. Make sure that you've got everything answered. Make your narratives as descriptive, as concise as possible. And make sure that you've got everything that we've asked for on the application. Okay. Two other parts of the packet there. The application checklist. Another opportunity to make sure that everything is included. That checklist, go down there and check it off. And make sure that you've got all your documents and everything that's applicable to your application is there. This checklist is going to help you do that. You do not have to submit that with your application. That is just for your benefit to make sure everything is there that is needed. Okay? And fourthly, a part of that application is the ranking criteria. That ranking criteria is what the technical review committee is going to use to review and rank your application. So when you get done with your application, go through that ranking criteria and add up the number of points you're going to get. Or think about it. So that you'll know basically where you're at when you get done with the process. But that is the ranking criteria that the technical review committee is going to use to review and rank your application. So it's a good tool to understand what you need to have in there as well. Again, that doesn't have to be submitted with your application. That's just for your use to assist you with the application. Okay. After the approval, after August 15th, what happens next? You've received you've been to the meeting, you see that you're part of the application. What happens next? Late August, staff and I will work on our subrecipient agreements, and we will get those mailed out to you for your execution and approval by your boards or whatever you've got to do, and those will be due back into our office by mid-September. Section down there on the bottom of technical assistance for subrecipients. As Chuck mentioned earlier in the process, is that these are federal funds, many of them that we're talking about. And as well with federal funds, they come a lot of strings attached, a lot of rules and regs that we must follow in order for, to get these funds. And it's my job, as well as my staff's job, to make sure that we follow all those rules and regs. Because ultimately, if and when, and fortunately we won't have any problems, if we make a problem and we miss one of those regs and don't get it done, it's Chuck and I's problem and Denise's problem that we've got to go to the city manager and say, we screwed up on these regs, we got to pay back the federal government $100,000 that you've got to write out of the general fund. I don't want to go make that I don't want to go have that conversation. So you will, during that period of time between August 15th and October 1, we will be reaching out to our public facilities projects, those projects that have additional rules and regs, and probably asking you for some more information on your application that may or may not have been in there, so that we line up and we get all of our rules and regs and T's and I's crossed to make sure that I don't have to go speak to the city manager about your organization having that issue. Will be a lot of hand-holding, working with you. We are here to help, as I said, help you as well as ourselves with making sure all these rules and regs there. Some of the things that I'm talking about, David's making wage rate requirements, that we have to prevailing wage rates on construction projects. If we're doing rehab, big rehabs to facilities and whatnot, that's another one. Section 3 reporting. The folks that we're hiring to do those projects. Minority and women business enterprises. We have to keep up with that type stuff on those projects where we have larger projects and larger amounts of money. So we will be reaching out, getting more information from you, helping you understand that, providing guidance and technical assistance for those folks that are not aware of it. But that will be during that process, making sure that we're ready to go. That gets us to October 1. As we're here today, it's not too early to start thinking about making sure that you've got everything, begin working in place, being prepared to be ready to go October 1st. One of the other portions, and the reason that's important, is the timely use of these funds. Our subrecipient agreement we're going to put out there with you is going to be from October 1 of 2017 to September 30th of 2018. We need every one of those funds that we provide you, unless it's a big project, we need every one of those expended. Because we have requirements that we have to meet, that we've got to get these funds out the door in a timely manner, and they're not sitting there being unused. If they are, then HUD reclaims them and they give them to somebody else that who can expend those. So it's very important that, as I said, we get in the mindset that we're going to be ready to go with these funds and we're going to get them out of the door. So, being prepared to start using the funds. The one thing that we're going to do is, you cannot spend any of these funds prior to October 1 in the execution of your subrecipient agreement. Number 2, you can't start spending these funds until you get a letter that has my name on it or one of my staff's name on it, says notice to proceed, you may begin. That even goes for our public services and our other projects that we have out there. It is our goal to make sure that we're ready October 1 so that you can get started October 1 and spending your funds. Now, if you spend funds prior to October 1 or prior to you spending your subrecipient agreement, we cannot reimburse those. Until you have that notice to proceed and that subrecipient agreement signed, do not expend any funds because we will not be able to reimburse those funds. Okay? Once we get that process started, staff has created a wonderful Excel spreadsheet for you to provide us monthly reports on your activities and where you're at. How much money you've expended, how many people you've benefited, the race and ethnicity and all of those things on that spreadsheet. But it's a nice Excel spreadsheet, very well done, very easy to keep up. Number 1, it gives us the information we need where we start our year-end reporting. Number two, it gives you a way to track to see where you're at with your expenditures because it has an expenditure column. So it's a good tool, not only for you guys, but us to make sure that we get our information that we need. So at the end of the year, when I'm required to tell HUD what I've done with those funds, I've already got it in and ready to go. That's important again. We need that on a monthly basis. By about the 10th of the next month, we need that in our office. Okay? And if we get to that point where we're not getting it, you're gonna get a knock on the door from one of us and say, where's that at? Okay? Important that we get that. Okay? You know, if you do a monthly draw request, send that report in with it. That's the best way to remember it. Okay? Annual site monitoring. We are required to monitor to make sure that you're maintaining the records that we are required to have. Okay? So on at least an annual basis, possibly more, you'll be seeing myself and our staff come out. We will send you a letter and let you know when we're coming to set up a time. We'll send you a notice in a letter that will tell you what we need to look at so that we can, again, assure that you've got your files and records in the right process so that, again, we meet all those rules and regs. Because there is the possibility that in that same process, when a HUD monitor comes to monitor us, they may want to come and see your record keeping and all of that. So it's my responsibility and staff and I's responsibility to make sure that that's in order, just like the HUD folks come and look at us. We come and look at your records as well. I will turn it back over to Chuck. He will talk to a couple of slides here, and then at the end, we'll come back and answer questions.
Joe's talked about so far is the CDBG program, and that program is primarily grant funding. And I can't stress enough, there are obligations that come with accepting that grant funding, and he reviewed them with you. It's reporting, it's making sure you follow the rules. We have to make sure we follow the rules. We have to make sure that you follow the rules as well. So, you know, make no mistake about it. There is an obligation on your part to do your role through that process. Okay. The housing pool. Okay. That, as Joe mentioned earlier, that $2.5 million is kind of a floating number. It's a moving target. There are multiple funding sources that go into that $2.5 million. And you know, another reason it's a floating target, kind of a moving number, is because we do a lot of that business in the form of loans, unlike the CDBG program. And what that allows us to do, it allows us to keep using that money over and over again. You know, we might do a single-family home. Someone might come in, we might fund the construction of that single-family home. Much of that money will be returned to us when that home is sold to a qualifying buyer. And now we can take that money, $120,000, whatever it is, and we can use it on the next single-family home, and then again and again and again. So that's kind of a balloon payment structure on getting paid back for those loans. What we're trying to work into is do more business where we get paid back over time to keep that revenue stream reliable over time and help us be more sustainable as the economy does this, and we're having trouble, you know, the funding ebbs and flows from year to year. So the housing pool, we do a number of things through the housing pool. I am Terry, why don't you come on up? I'm the contact on some of those programs, and Terry will be the contact on some of the other programs. When it comes to, firms will come in and want to build a single-family home, sell it to a qualifying buyer. That's something I will deal with you on. We can do multifamily new construction. I'll deal directly with you on that. I'll be the contact. We have some folks in the room that have tapped into this program before. We have firms that will buy homes that are a bit dilapidated. They'll fix them up, and then they'll sell them to a qualifying buyer. So part of the analysis we need to do is we need to make sure that when you build that home or when you fix that home, that you're able to place people in that home. Because that's a rule that we have, that's a box that we need to check. If you build a single-family home as an organization and are not able to place a qualified buyer in that program in a certain period of time, we failed.
Yeah, and which, just piggybacking on what Chuck is saying, we have 9 months in which after the construction is completed to get an eligible home buyer or a family into that property. If not, that has to turn into a rental, and we don't wanna be doing that because we have continuing monitoring that has to take place. So, again, if you're going into single family, or doing any kind of construction, after the CO has been issued, we have 9 months in which to get a qualifying home buyer into that property.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Applications for the housing pool accepted year-round. Okay, so you don't have to do it through this application cycle. If you have a project that you're interested in, you think it would be, this program is applicable, come call me. I have a pocket full of business cards. If you want one, I'll give it to you. You can call me. You can just call our office. You can get in touch with me. Happy to talk with you. I might not always give you the answer you want to hear, but I will evaluate what you're proposing, and I can give you that assurance.
And Chuck, as a note, the application we're using here is that same application. It will be on the line that we will have to ask for those funds.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Let's see. So some of the things we do, I talked about a couple of them. Single-family home construction, multifamily home construction, property acquisition, okay? Acquisition rehab, okay? Those are the things I'll deal with. This program, Housing Pool, is also available to homeowners and potential home buyers. We do homeowner reconstruction loans, okay? A qualifying buyer will contact Terry, okay? And why don't we hit that next page? Terry, why don't you talk a little bit about that? Oh, no, we're talking about this one now.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll go back to the SHIP after.
Okay, for the homeowner rehabilitation program, we have funding available. That's gonna come through the housing pool. The rehab program is for Clearwater, property that are located within the city limits of Clearwater that doesn't exceed a value of $177,000. We have an amount right now not to exceed $40,000, which we can use for code-related issues. When I say code-related issues, I'm talking about roof replacement, plumbing, electrical, if there's lead present or asbestos shingles. That's the kind of stuff that will be addressed with the homeowner rehabilitation program. No swimming pool enhancement or going into the back and fixing up the backyard. None of those things would be applied, but just to make sure that the house is brought up to code. We go to, the rehabilitation program is managed through the department. If eligible homeowner calls, I will kind of screen the applicant, make sure that they're income eligible, make sure that if there's a mortgage on the property, a first mortgage, it's current, make sure that there are no adverse lien on the property. From there, we have a engineering firm that we partner with that does the inspection. We also do inspection for termite, because if there are any kind of termite activity going on, we have a termite firm that will go out and make sure that the place is treated. If there's lead present, we'll make sure that there's some kind of abatement at the end of the project. So this program is eligible for people that live within the city limits of Clearwater, whose income does not exceed 80% of the median income. We do have a small amount of money that we can go up to 120, but it's so small that our focus is to help those folks that are at 80% or below median income.
That code compliance is critical too. We might have someone that, for example, wants to replace their roof under this program, and that's all well and good, and that's applicable. But if there's some other code violation unrelated to that roof, we can't complete that process. That needs to be fixed for us to be able to close that file.
Exactly, and piggyback on what Chuck is saying, if we go into a property and we notice that there is it's missing smoke detectors, the resident might say, well, I don't want that done, but because it's so minor. But it's not minor, because if in case there's a fire, that's a system that will alert the homeowner that, hey, I need to get out. So if, again, we have our inspector that's going to go in and check to make sure that for all the code issue, and we also have our billing department that makes sure that as we go along with this project, they go out and they make sure that the work is done up to the city code and the building code that's regulated by the state of Florida.
Want to talk about the DPA program a little bit?
Yeah, we do have a down payment and closing cost assistance program. Right now, our closing cost, down payment and closing cost assistance program is administered by Tampa Bay CDC. Tampa Bay CDC will take the application. They'll make sure that the applicant is income eligible, that the property is a property that we can assist, and that the value, the appraised value of that property, again, if it's an existing structure, does not exceed $177,000. If it's new construction, the appraised value should not exceed $224,000. The Tampa Bay CDC will evaluate the client. The client will need to go through what is known as a Homebuyers Education program, and that's mandated by HUD. Because what we have seen in the past is that clients that do not get the kind of education it needs to maintain and sustain the dwelling end up in foreclosure. And that's something that we're trying to avoid in the future. So that is required, that the home buyer, the prospective home buyer, has to go through a HUD certified home buyer's education. Once the homeowner has selected the property and has gone through the contract process, we have again our engineering firm, Nova Engineer, will go out and they'll inspect the property to make sure that the property is up to code. We don't want to assist a family that we're providing a second mortgage, and the second mortgage that we provide is up to $14,000 in assistance for existing homes. We don't want to assist a property that a year later the homeowner is saying, well, my roof is caving in, or the plumbing, no one checked the plumbing to make sure that now I have a leak that I don't have the money to address. So we do make sure that the house is up to code. We also check to make sure that there's no lead present, because if the house was built before '78, back that time, they were using lead-based paint. If there's lead there, again, we do that abatement. We do the abatement. We make sure the seller is aware of this so they can bring this house up to code, and that the prospective home buyer is going into a home that the roof and the plumbing, the electrical, we know that that's good for at least the next 5 years. Again, if you, as our partners, if someone comes to you and say, hey, I'm looking for down payment and closing cost assistance, refer them to the city. I will take those calls, I will forward them to Tampa Bay CDC, or if there's any prospective agency who's looking to partner with us right now to provide this service, give us a call and we'll give you information and what the criteria to perform the service for us.
Something else we want to make you aware of, and this is outside of the CDBG program as well. The state just, they informed us recently that they have additional funds available for homebuyer education. Terry, our State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program, Terry again is our expert on that. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I want to talk about that. Is there any agency in here that's looking to provide home buyers education? Okay, good news for you. We just received a little over $15,000 from the state of Florida through the SHIP program, and this is geared towards first-time home buyers education. One of the criteria, the main criteria for utilizing these funds is that the agency has to be HUD certified. The clients that you're serving, they have to live within the city limits of Clearwater. And again, first-time homebuyers education is to provide the prospective homebuyers with knowing what they're getting into when they purchase a home. $15,000, again, it's available. Monthly reports are due. And with the monthly reports, we need to know the clientele that you're serving, the backup documentation that they live within the city limits of Clearwater. You can call me, I'll tell you all the other documentation that would be required to be reimbursed each month for the client that you've provided the required education.
And that funding is available immediately during this fiscal year. So you don't have to wait till next fiscal year on that. Okay? I'm taking a picture of the screen. Got it? Questions?
One other quick thing. One of the things on the slide that we talked about there with our housing pool applications. One of the things that's going to be important in that process, as you kind of heard us say, staff of 4, all the federal rules and regulations. With those housing pool funds, if you find that opportunity that you need to get into, you need to give staff and I 90 days to get the application done, to get our rules and regs and all the extra stuff that we have to do with these federal funds done prior to you getting funds. So you go out and you find that great piece of property, I can't write you a check 15 days from that point to do that project. We've gotta have the time to make sure that we get our environmental review stuff done, that we've got all of our regs and everything ready to go, our agreements. We really need that 90-day process to do. Are we gonna take all 90 days? Hopefully we won't. But that's gonna give us, if we've got 3 or 4 things going on, give us time to get all of those done. But we need that time, again, to protect ourselves as well as protecting you, so that we can move forward and get those funds out the door. But I want to reiterate that we've got to have time to do our review, to get everything in that process so that everybody is protected with our rules and regs.
You know, many of these programs that he's talking about, these deals, these projects, involve real estate acquisition, and that takes time. You know, you try to rush a real estate acquisition, and you're just asking for problems. When people come to us and they have a property they want to buy, rehab, or vacant land, they want to close in 2 weeks, 30 days, that's just too quick. It really is just a lot of steps we need to take, not just from the real estate side, from the funding regulation side. To try to rush these things is just a real bad idea, and we're going to try to avoid that to the extent we can.
And then piggybacking on Chuck, we also have to send it to our legal team for review and approval. So that takes time also. So we're just looking for, be reasonable, give us enough time to get an appraisal, get the survey, work with the title company, get the title commitment, get the HUD-1. And it does take time. So 30 days is not enough to really see a real estate transaction from the start to the end. Another thing that I want to talk about is the reporting. I see a lot of agencies that will send in a request for reimbursement, but they're not sending in the required report, a backup documentation. That's something that we're going to pay a lot of attention to this next fiscal year, or this next couple of months. We want to make sure that the reporting that they're due on the 10th of each month. Get those reports to us. If you don't provide us with the report, we're not going to be able to provide it with reimbursements.
I think those of you that have worked with us in the past, I think that you realize that we're very accommodating in the housing division. Staff is very approachable, and we'll manage these projects, I think, to your satisfaction. We still are city government, and we have process, and there are things that we need to do and things that take time. We're not the private sector where we can just bing, bang, boom, stroke a check and be off and running. Okay, have patience with us as you go through these projects. At this time, we'll take questions for any question. There's no such thing as a dumb question, unless probably I ask it. But if you could come up here, and so this mic picks up your voice, and that way you're on the recording. There's no camera looking at you. The camera is only on the PowerPoint, so don't worry about your hair or anything. So feel free to come up and ask a question, and even if it's a question you might know the answer to, that question might benefit someone else in the audience. So.
Taisha Scantlin with the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation. One of the questions that I had was, on the application it says maximum request amount for public service projects are $30,000. Then it says an amount of $4,000 will be set aside for housing, counseling activities for public service categories. We are economic development. Does that apply to what we would be looking to do?
Depending on the activities that you're going to look at, the economic development portion may be a public service, may not be a public service. If it is a public service, then we're within that 15% cap, and we will adjust, and the max would be that $30,000 that you could request. Again, we want to keep it. If it's another activity that is not part of that public service, technical assistance and those type activities, we can pull that out of the public service. Then we still want to keep it reasonable. The $30,000 would be a good number, but you're not locked in by that $30,000.
Would you still have to have the $4,000 set aside?
The $4,000 set aside for Homebuyer Education, we just put that in there for a small amount. We have the other funds in our SHIP program and all of that for other Homebuyer Education funding that we could do over and above the $4,000.
Got it.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Lisa Jackson, I'm with West Care. And having been involved with the CDBG applications for several years, $30,000, there was a formula involved with the 30,000 so that you really only were applying for approximately 18,000 when you applied for 30. That no longer exists, is what I'm hearing?
That process is still gonna be in there.
Okay,
Because
so
we're
there's
gonna
a
get,
formula.
that 15% based on the number we've got there is 110,000.
Mm-hmm.
So if we've got 10 folks asking for $30,000, that's gonna be 300.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna use a formula similar to, or that same formula to do that application and distribution of those public service funds as we've done in the past.
Okay, so what I noticed is you didn't advertise the formula. Is there, I mean, is there not a specific formula? You're gonna do something similar?
And I'm going to refer to staff on that because I haven't actually seen that formula yet myself. But we're gonna use something similar to, if not the same, as we've done in the past, and Denise can help address me with that.
That's a great question. It really depends upon how many applicants come in under the public services category. If we have 4 applicants at $110,000 that we can distribute, that will affect. If we have 10 applicants, as you can imagine. So the technical review committee ranking will affect, quite likely, how those formula dollars are distributed. We will disclose that at the NAHAB meeting, the methodology that we use, but unfortunately not knowing how many applications are gonna come in and how applicants will rank, it's very difficult to give you a set formula, if you will. Obviously, we're looking for the highest ranked, best qualified, or most complete applications and best qualified organizations to apply, but the number of those organizations will absolutely affect the distribution of funds. So it's one of the reasons why your presentations at NAHAB are necessary, but the application is critical to the opportunity for you to get the most, depending on how many applications we receive. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I hate to be so vague, but you can imagine, if we get 20 applicants, if we get 3 applicants, if we get great applications, and maybe one that's not so great, that will affect the distribution and allocation.
Some very quick math will just give you an idea how competitive this may be. $100,000, about $110,000, based on last year's allocation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Frances Druding from the Clearwater Neighborhood Family Center. We were a recipient of this particular grant, and the funding was not done last year, so we are reapplying for that. But having been a recipient of the grant before, we're in the social services field, and I would be the accountant to do all the math. So I kind of understand the whole formulation behind it. I guess my question is, to follow up on what the director said, is what kind of programs would be a best fit as far as human services is concerned to have the higher likelihood? What is the city looking to really fund that is not located within the area that we service that would have the best fit for this grant?
My major focus, and of course with the CDBG funds, is everybody that's 80% or less of median income.
Correct.
We're not, and I'm not aware of, we've gone out and said we want to do homeless prevention more so than we want to do early childhood education or anything like that. I'm not aware, and I'll turn to Chuck again. I've been here 5 weeks, so
Okay.
I'm still learning. I don't know that we've identified any specific human services that we're looking to get funded. Our primary goal when we report to HUD is, did it benefit somebody less than 80% of median income?
Well, the first litmus test is HUD, of course,
Yes.
and compliance. I don't want to go as far as to say we will know what we want when we see it, but there's a little bit of that to it, okay? What we'd like to see, I think, is some diversity in the program. We'd like to see different services. So our program is wide-ranging with a number of different services.
Okay.
I think that's key. You want to add anything to that, Denise?
Just a little bit. I would suggest that we have to comply with our consolidated plan and our annual action plan, which is published. You'll be able to find the 2016-2020 plan, or 2017-2020 plan. And within that is the first year annual action plan that we're operating with right now. You can use that as a great guide for what it is that we're attempting to achieve. So when we file a consolidated plan with HUD and an annual action plan, which as you can imagine is done annually, we submit performance reports based on that. And so it's really important to us that the services that we're providing out in the community meet those objectives. And so within that consolidated plan, you'll find all of the objectives that HUD wants us to achieve and our response for that. And that may provide you really some great guidance as to how to fashion your program. Okay?
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Great.
Lisa Jackson again.
Yep.
I have a quick question. My director is in Miami. And therefore, when you ask for a copy, a blue signature copy, we often use electronic signatures. Is there an issue with a blue electronic signature, or do you need a live signature?
I don't think there's an issue with that, Kim?
No, I mean, even in my training class, they said as long as we will accept an e-signature, an e-signature's fine.
Okay.
Kathy Russell, Pinellas Opportunity Council, the TOR program. Do we have an idea yet who the committee members are that are going to review it? And are those committee members going to be at our presentation, because they usually aren't? Except for the NAHAB people.
I have got the committee members, I have not reached out to them to get them shored up to do that.
Okay.
I will work to make sure that those committee members are attempt to be at the NAHAB meeting so that they hear the presentation.
That's
And I hear
great.
your concern, but no, ma'am, I have not nailed those folks down. I have their names, I have not reached out to them to put them on the committee,
Okay.
but I will ask them to be at the presentation on the 18th, so that they hear those.
That'd be fabulous. And would you post who the committee members are at some point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I will
Thank
work
you.
through that. Yes, ma'am, that's what we do. Other questions, concerns?
Mark West McGee, Bright Community Trust. Quick question, I heard that you said 90 days for acquisition and rehab. Most contracts are written for 45 days. And then given, I know on our last project, they gave us another 15 days as an extension. So we, in this market, most houses that are under $90,000 are only on the market for 7 days or less. So that's something that's going to be very difficult for a real estate agent to write a 90-day contract out. Most of them are 45. So.
In that case, my suggestion would be to do your best to do 60 at the beginning, and then we can work from there.
Okay.
And again, but we need as much time, we really need that 90 days.
Okay.
I understand that, I saw the reaction when I said the 90 days. You need to start if possible when you do that. So that, again, we've got time to get the environmental review done. You're working on one now. We can get, and again, being a community development housing organization, we've got to have that every time you come to the table, and the application and everything like that. So my thing is start with 60.
Okay.
From the get-go and work from there. But we will do that's gonna be, as I said, there are those circumstances where we've got to work with you, and we understand that, being in the real estate business, all of us have been, we can do that. But my thing is start with 60 from the get-go.
Yeah, that's a real tough part of the types of projects you come with, Mark West. It's a real estate deal, and you need to acquire the property, and you got people out there that are trying to get the biggest check for their property, no question. We're still in this rush of investor buying. So and I understand the difficulty in getting a piece of property and getting, the due diligence period, written into that contract that you need. Do the best you can. At the end of the day, there's going to be projects, there's going to be acquisitions that probably fall through because of the timing, and it's just part of the game. It's part of what we are. And I know that's not what you want to hear. I would strongly suggest you write your contingencies into that project, subject to, getting approval of federal funding. And then you're not tied into that contract where you're going to write a check out of your own organization because we can't come through. That's the hard part of this. These real estate deals, people want to close. They want to close with a lot of money, and they want to close quick. And they don't always marry up to our programs. So, there's going to be some things that come through that don't work out. But, we'll do the best we can. I fully understand your predicament.
Other questions?
I actually have one more.
Yes, ma'am.
Two's the limit.
In the past, presentations to the NAHAB have been from who turned in their proposal first. Are we gonna do something like that? Will the presentation lineup be advertised? So that, if it starts at 9, because it can go on for quite some time.
Staff and I actually talked about that yesterday afternoon. Yes, ma'am, what we will do is we will, when the applications come to us, we will stamp it with the date and time, and we will list that will be the order of the presentations. To answer your question, then, we will post that list of who's going to do that on our website with the time, okay? And that's a very good suggestion for, like I said, if we've got 40 applications at five minutes apiece, yes, ma'am, it's gonna get long. So we will do the presentations as we get the applications in by date and time, and then we will post that on the website no later than about 2 or 3 days prior to the meeting, so that you can see what time you're should be there, give or take 2 or 3 minutes with and all that. So yes, ma'am, we will do that.
And in the past, we have been allowed to have handouts that were passed out to the NAHAB members at that moment. Will you be allowing that, or is that considered adding to the proposal at that time?
In my mind, that would be adding to the proposal. They've got your application in front of them, or will have access to those applications. So they should have everything that you're gonna be able to provide them for them to make the application. So no, ma'am, we will not do handouts on that. Okay. Other questions? Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Good luck on your application. Oh, one other quick thing. If you've got your application ready to go, you can stop by the office. I'll stamp it in and say you're ready to go. If not, I will see you between now and next 2 weeks from now on the application.
Staff will stick around for a few moments should you have any questions one-on-one. Thank you for coming.